St. Mark's was actually begun in 1855 because there was a need for a community church. There was a group of people who were going to Freedom's in northwest Guilford County, out from Gibsonville, and they needed a more local church, not to have to drive so far. So in 1855, a group of people chartered St. Mark's and met in Holmes and Bush Arbor until 1862. And that's when they built their first building. The men of the church cut the lumber off of land that was donated by a church member and built a small wooden structure that was the first St. Mark's building. Later on, there was a larger wooden building built. And then in 1947, part of this structure, the sanctuary, was built.
60 years ago, when I started attending this church, they had just finished an education building and a fellowship hall for the congregation. And then when Bob came, we started growing and we got ready to expand and dug down in the ground and found out the foundation was already there to build whatever we wanted to, basically, on it.
So this was the sanctuary when I first arrived, with the exception of some expansion that we did on both sides. But it was attractive, it was intimate, it was useful, it worked for us. But after a while, it was evident that the walls weren't wide enough. We were not going to be able to continue. And what we could not imagine when I first got here is that West Burlington was going to explode. And so even back in the 1970s, there was some emotion here for what if? We could ignore that, see what happens, or we can get a step ahead of what God might be up to. And that's what we decided to do.
The history of St. Mark's cannot be separated from its present and its future. The more I hear and learn about the history, is the more I realize that this church, this group of people, not the building, but this church, was created, was formed for such a time as this. 170 years ago, it was formed for such a time as that, and that's still true.
I think about what it took to do some of the stained glass windows and some of the crosses we've got around here have been here for a lot of years. And I think it's important for us to come into this space because it's important for us to know that we came from something foundational. I'm so struck that the scriptures that Pete is using in some of his sermons that he's preaching to us are some of the same scriptures we used back then to say, it isn't about us. It feels like the vision continued from where we had originally cast it, where the people who spoke German had originally cast it. People who had the same kind of hearts we did, people who wanted the same kind of mission that we did. We want to reach people who are broken. We want to give people second chances. We want to give people hope. We don't want to judge people by their past. We want to give them a hope for the future.
I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. I think there was a reason that we found this place when we did. I guess the real beginning of it started in 2016, where I found sobriety first. And with that, I found God. And one day my girls started talking about wanting to go to church. They had questions, they had concerns, they wanted to know why. I didn't have the answer. So I had done some investigation on social media. We were welcomed, although we wanted to slide in undetected. You can't avoid it. It's not in a judging way. It's like, okay, come on in. Like, you belong here. Got in the car and we pulled off, and I was kind of like, well, and the girls were like, Dad, can we go back? And then Jessica, my wife, was like, I think that went really good. And I was like, yeah, I think so too.
There's anything you're looking for. I go to the Thursday morning Bible study. The people are friendly. The community service that we do that really makes a huge difference in this community. It's all advancing the kingdom of God. just bringing Jesus to these people. And that's really what I believe in, becoming an apprentice of Jesus.
We've loved the teaching, loved the fellowship, loved the small group part of it. Well, the worship every Sunday is so special, and we've enjoyed the commitment to the youth that this church has continued to do.
It's in the DNA of St. Mark's from the beginning to step out where the Lord is leading us to bring people to a saving relationship with Jesus. For your neighbor is exactly that, for your neighbor. The things that we're doing here on our campus, we will enjoy and benefit from, but it's just like having guests over to your house. We're just getting ready for the people that are already coming.
This area is experiencing growth that we may never see again. And this is a moment that we need to capture. And we're building off of what we've already done. But this is a moment where we can do it exponentially. I want this to be the moment where 15 years from now, we can look back and say, remember when we did that? And look what it did. But more importantly, look what God did.
The soul of this church has always been Jesus. Just a focus on Jesus, who he was, what he claimed, the way he lived, the passionate way he gave himself, even all the way to the cross. And so many years ago, we said, would our mission be just to make sure that he stays the famous one? It's not about us. Never been about us, really. It's always been about Jesus. And then we said, well, if our mission is to make Jesus famous, which is what we eventually said, then how? People want to know how. Well, the best way is for you and me and all of us to model who he was, what he stood for, the way he loved unconditionally, and the way he was determined to reach out and make a difference in one more. So yeah, we make Jesus famous, and the only way to do that is to, when someone looks at us, they might say, I see Jesus reflected in you, which would be, a dream come true.